What provides the pulse to cutting-edge technologies at the heart of American prosperity and productivity? What creates prosperity? What builds the tools needed to confront the greatest challenges and opportunities facing our society? For the past 2 decades, the Council has made the compelling case that innovation is the answer to all of those questions and is the single most important factor in determining America's success in a global marketplace. Whether we look back at our seminal work to redefine the Vannevar Bush innovation model in the mid-1990s, or the launch of our National Innovation Initiative nearly 10 years ago on a snowy day in Atlanta at Georgia Tech. America's transcendent opportunity in the years to come remains finding the most creative ways to unleash our innovation capacity, to drive productivity, elevate living standards, and sustain leadership in the global marketplace. But during a time when macroeconomic forces and financial constraints make innovation-driven growth an even more urgent imperative, we are also confronting a historically unprecedented acceleration of turbulence and change, relentless pressure for short-term results, and fierce competition from countries that seek their own innovation-driven future. Innovation has always been the core nucleotide in America's DNA. From our birth, we have been most fundamentally about exploration, opportunity, discovery. We've been about new beginnings, about exploring the endless frontier. But today, much as was the case 30 years ago at the founding of the Council on Competitiveness, America finds itself at a distinctive and historical juncture, shaped by some fundamental changes in the nature of global competition and the nature of innovation itself. First, the world is becoming dramatically more interconnected and competitive. The convergence that first catalyzed the competitiveness debate 30 years ago is now back, but it's back with a vengeance. Today we compete, and yes, we collaborate in a hyper-connected world, a world that one could not have even imagined 30, 20, much less 10 years ago. We compete and collaborate in a global trading system that is, in some ways, fragile. We compete and collaborate globally to attract the best and brightest minds from around the world, to develop the new knowledge, and to create the new industries and technologies that will reshape competitive advantage. Second, the nature of innovation itself is changing. In fact, something remarkable, really remarkable, is happening right now. We see new innovation ecosystems emerging outside traditional systems of research and innovation. These systems are supporting independent innovators and stretch across ideation and invention, financing and manufacturing, and partnership brokering. For example, the cost of DNA sequencing falling through the floor. With the deployment of inexpensive tools like centrifuges, and with the proliferation of crowdfunding, doctoral students are now dropping out of big budget research institutions, corporate R&D departments to form their own laboratories. Open innovation platforms are providing places, they're providing processes that connect innovation seekers with problem solvers. We're also seeing the democratization for financing of innovation, embodied in web-based crowdfunding sites like Kickstarter, Group Crowdfunder, EquityNet, and many others. The internet has disrupted and democratized publishing, broadcasting, communications, and hundreds of millions of new participants are pouring in with podcasts, blogs, YouTube and Vine videos, Facebook pages, Tumblrs, and as Eamon said, robots and algorithms that are going to steal his byline. And what happened in cyberspace is now happening in the real world, in digitally enabled push-button manufacturing, the Internet of Everything. The tools of production and disruptive technologies are now available to individuals. $1,000 3D printers, prototyping tools, laser cutters, robots, easy-to-use design software, off-the-shelf electronics, and desktop machining tools. These are all working in tandem to change the economics of production, defining anew who can be a manufacturer, who can be a creator, who can be an innovator, and putting the power of production into the hands of the masses. An individual innovator can now design and make a product without owning any traditional manufacturing infrastructure. No warehouse, no assembly line, no forklift, no heavy equipment, no inventory. And it used to take cumbersome bank transfers, letters of credit, purchase orders to engage with a production line in China. Now you can do it with a text message, an email, a PayPal account, and you can increasingly do it here in the United States. Digital channels such as Quirky, Etsy, eBay are all used to market and sell to the world. The economics of transaction cost are being turned on their head. New kinds of institutions, new partnerships, new entities are emerging to bridge the gap between research at universities, the business community, and other key players like financiers. So what does this all mean? The traditional institutional connections between invention and innovation, capital and production are being rewired. In some sense, they're even being severed. It is becoming possible now for someone to imagine, to develop, and to scale an innovation independent of the conventional institutions of innovation. And with these new models, barriers to entry are falling. Crowds are moving in. A disruptive force unlike anything we have ever seen is about to be unleashed, the collective power and potential of millions of innovators. In this environment of change, how can we broaden participation in this transforming, shifting innovation enterprise, engaging all Americans in regions that have not played a role commensurate with their potential? We're going to hear more about all of this today. And in my final point, the greatest wealth from technology and innovation is created when they scale and diffuse across the entire economy. Reorganizing around technology is a dynamic and turbulent process as new companies go, as old companies go, as new companies emerge, and as human and capital resources reallocate, market shares shift, supply chains reorder, industry clusters bubble up and recede. This churn is really the beating heart of innovation, and it is essential for getting the most jobs, the most growth, the most productivity and wealth out of our innovation assets. We have a comparatively flexible economic system in the United States that promotes this dynamic, creative destruction. A main reason we have been among the countries that have most benefited from the digital revolution over the past 20 years. But in recent years, evidence has been mounting and suggests that we may not be as flexible, we may not be as dynamic as we have been in the past. We heard a little bit about that this morning from Sam and Deborah's presentation of the 2015 Clarion Call. And over the past decade, we saw a slowdown in startups. We've seen tremendous losses in manufacturing and the emergence of an increasingly bifurcated economy. Do we have too much friction in our economic engine, diminishing our ability to absorb innovation? We do pay attention to R&D investment, and we've made significant strides in increasing the efforts to close valleys of death and to boost commercialization, though we can surely do more. But perhaps going forward, we might need to pay relatively more attention to how quickly and creatively we reorganize our entire society and our economy around technologies that are new and innovations, and how we can ease the transition for those displaced by these changes. Together, these large shifts suggest that America really does stand at another inflection point in its history. So what will America do? What will we all do? Will we plan and invest for the long term rather than just the next quarter? Will we put into place the talent, the innovation capital, and the infrastructure that's necessary for continuing success in the 21st century? Will we recognize the multifaceted nature of these challenges and opportunities and come together across all sectors of our society? In essence, will we continue to innovate, or will we abdicate our innovation heritage and leadership? This morning's conversation to follow is going to set the stage for a national effort over the coming year, leading up to the Council's 30th anniversary, to accelerating emerging and new innovation models that can drive U.S. competitiveness and productivity for the decades to come. Leaders over the coming hour and a half are going to dive more deeply into why the United States must continue to outcompete, to outbuild, to outinvest the rest of the world. We will demonstrate some of the most promising areas for U.S. leadership, from nanotechnology to robotics to the Internet of Everything. And we're going to provide some perspective on why and how this nation must invest and overcome and avoid an innovation deficit. The Council's National Innovation 10 years ago and our current Exploring Innovation Frontiers initiative with the National Science Foundation are predicated on the belief that we must optimize our entire society for a future in which innovation will be the single most important factor in shaping prosperity. Well, that future is here. That future is now. Thank you.